guys, what's going on? Massivebeatzz here, checking in with a video about hardware controllers, from fader controllers, dedicated plug-in controllers, Maschine 3, even your keyboard or your mouse or a trackpad. We're going to be talking about these a little bit and why you need them, or do you even need them, and what are the potential pitfalls, dangers, opportunities, and chances. We're going to be fairly quick about it, but if you're not into hardware controllers yet, this may be something to keep in mind and to maybe watch. All right. And so before we get started, don't forget to like and subscribe and comment. And please let me know, what is your favorite hardware controller? Is there anything you can't live without? Or can you do it all with a keyboard and a mouse, which also are actually hardware controllers? They are controlling things with your hands. So is there anything that was particularly painful to set up? Or are there things like they just make your life so much easier? There are so many controllers out there. And so let's talk a little bit. So I would say, if you look at my setup here, just a traditional console workflow. So if we look in Logic here, in my case, we have all these channels here. There's nothing on them right now, but this is like a template for 120 session, 120 track session. And I can very easily follow along with my UF8 and my UC1 and really control everything that I need to control. I can very easily control this, and I don't have to look at the plugin. I am looking at the hardware, and it's super easy for me to do. I have a few videos about the UC1 and the UF8 already on my channel. Also about Maschine. I think also one about the Launchpad Pro, which is also one of my favorite MIDI input controls. So it could just press another button here, and I'm pulling up my SSL mixer, my basically virtual console, which I really enjoy. I highly recommend it. So if you like SSL sounds, I would highly recommend, look to the right of the screen, I would highly recommend getting this. You have a bus compressor. You can open up to 8 bus compressors, and you can have an insane amount of SSL channels, which is basically a 4000 E console or a 9000 XL console. So I think it's an XL console with the EQ of a 4000 E or a 9000 in there, which you can switch. So I have here this little, if you look at the left, that puts it into E mode, 4000 E mode. Otherwise, it's the cleaner 9000 mode. And it's really, really fantastic to work like that. Use your hands. It's sort of a thing that goes automatic. You don't have to think so much. You can do the same thing here with a mouse, right? But it just feels like more work. It feels more complicated than it should be. All right, so those are 2 of my recommendations. Get the use, if you have to choose between one of them, get the UC1 because it can do pretty much everything. It now can even do transport. So if I wanted to, I can transport. You see this? The transport now that's done on the UC1. So really fantastic in that regard. If you're doing a lot of balancing work, a lot of pure mixing, and you're not so much into the Channel Strip 2 plugin, the SSL sound, in that case, I think the UF8 would be the winner because you have real estate and you can stack several of them. So you can have 2 or 3 or 4 of them and really get close to that console mixing workflow. All right, moving on to probably something that's interesting. Push 2 is a super, super helpful tool. It gives you graphical representations of the EQs, the compressors, which makes it a great mixing tool. But also you have so many scales, so many ways of inputting music, playing music on pads. You can tune this in fourths, and it's basically going to be, or in fifth player. I love doing that on the controller, playing any type of chord that I can play on a guitar that's maybe very complex on a keyboard. I can play that easy. The same thing with Launchpad Pro. They are the same in that regard. So Launchpad Pro is a cheaper $300 version of it, and it works very well in Bitwig. It works very well in Logic. I can say that, and it works very well, of course, in Ableton because it's geared for that. Now, Push 2 doesn't work so well outside of Ableton. It really is geared to work inside Ableton, but inside of Ableton with that gorgeous screen, those amazing pads. I think you're well over $1,000 if you get Ableton Push, the Suite Push 2 plus the suite, like $1,200 or something. The controller by itself is just $800. If you have one to choose and you want to do a lot with one and you are really in Ableton, maybe even also Bitwig because they integrated well as well, get Push 2 and get really good at it. Try not to get too many controllers that do similar things. Don't be like me. I have a Push. I have a Maschine 2. I'm sorry, a Maschine 3 now. And I had the Studio before that and the 2 before that and the 1 before that. I'm a big Maschine user, more so than Ableton. But some sessions I play in Ableton. I started them in Ableton. I get them in Ableton. So I have to have some sort of Ableton compatibility. And now my other recommendation is Maschine 3. So Maschine 3 versus Push 2, who wins? That's a tough one. Maschine 3 is a DAW. It has audio inputs, outputs, headphone output. It's a very standalone thing, but it also runs as a plugin inside Logic, Pro Tools, Studio One, and also in Ableton. So you could bang the beats out in Maschine, do all those gorgeous sounds, those sound libraries that they have. Because Maschine Native Instruments has these massive sound libraries, really fantastic. And so for sound design and things where you want like access to all these sounds and have them mapped already, Maschine's really, really, really good. The pads are fantastic for laying down drum beats. They're better in that regard for than Push. The chord sets that you have, they're really interesting and you can do a lot with those chord sets. But then when it comes down to playing scales and playing melodies, Push 2 wins because it has 64 pads and they're like almost mimicking like a gigantic guitar fretboard. Maschine 3 has a gorgeous screen still, 2 screens, and you can do a lot with that. And everything is sort of like dedicated, pre-mapped. Everything has its button, everything. There's a few shortcuts, of course, because functionality grows. So you can get lost with that in Push 2 a little bit as well. You need to find a MIDI controller that supports your workflow. For example, this, for me, I would be like, great for playing scales. There's just so much width to it and depth as well. Can do a lot. Other people would look at all these controls here and go like, oh, wow, this is perfect. This is exactly what I need. This is, by the way, the new Polyant Play sampler, sequencer, groove box. There's a lot you can do with that. Ableton Push 2 here, $7.99, as I mentioned earlier, is still great. It's quite a big evolution from Push 1. And then, of course, the whole MPC ecosystem. Here, if you love the way they organize samples and the way they kind of like structure their sessions, the whole MPC ecosystem is really pretty cool. Some people swear by their pads. Some people swear by the way their sequencer is arranged. Going all the way back to the MC 3000, 2000s, I don't know, 4000, what came then, and then the whole studios, and they have so many over the years. But here again, there's something where you can get lost in a session making beats rather than clicking around with a mouse. Let me talk about mouse, keyboard, and trackpad. So trackpad is very good because you don't have to pick up something and hold it in your hand. You can just slide your fingers over it and also control plugins very easily. So I think a good idea is to have a mouse and a trackpad. You can even use them at the same time. So this is what I've been using for a while. I use a trackpad and a mouse at the same time, and that works pretty well. And also a keyboard that has maybe a play, start, stop, play, forward, backwards, and shortcuts. So there's a lot you can do before you rush out and start buying immediately the latest MIDI controller. See how much you can do with a mouse and a keyboard, how many shortcuts you can do on a keyboard, and how much control you get there. Also, keyboards, musical keyboards often have knobs and pads built in. So the key here is to set them up the right way. Sometimes that's not always easy. Sometimes the software that maps these things is a bit clunky. So make sure you try that out and make sure you get the most out of it. The worst case scenario is always having a MIDI controller that works half of the time, and then you're still reverting back to the mouse, or, like clicking on things and you are kind of like hesitant using it. So whatever you get, you got to get good at it. You got to integrate it actively into your workflow and use it as much as possible. So As you've seen, I got a Push, I got a Maschine, a Launchpad, the 2 SSL boxes, and they help me a lot. I could probably downsize that a little bit, but at this point, I wouldn't certainly buy more. So whatever I can't figure out within those, that is me. It's almost like an instrument. You don't pick up a guitar and master it right away. Don't change it too often either. Don't give up too soon is my advice. And make sure you try them out. Make sure you have the right to return them. The world of controlling things with your hands and your feet, there's foot pedals too, is certainly an exciting one. A good advice I would say, like whatever feels good, whatever is fun, whatever feels like, sparks you, gives you that creativity, that thing where you just can't stop, that is the one. Anyways, please let me know which controllers you like. There are so many which you have used, which are terrible, which are great, and which ones you're having, on the horizon that you may want to buy. Please like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Massivebeatzz out.